All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for joining. Again, the intent of today's session is really about capturing and mining qualitative feedback for actionable insights. And why do we say this? We will talk in this particular session about the problems that are evident in the industry, the challenges which are out there from a qualitative and quantitative perspective, and we'll show you a quick demo. So we'll condense the number of slides and walk you through more demo kind of stuff, and then open it up for Q&A and talk about next steps. Okay. So again, my name is Adi. Adi Buddhavarapu. I've been in the CRM industry for quite some time. Very passionate about customer experience and voice of the customer in general, the space, and also very humbled to be with Bill on a session. Just like somebody else said in the beginning of this event, it's a privilege to be with Bill and co-present with him. So quite honored, and thank you, Bill, for your time. Bill is known as the father of the data warehouse, and he has written a number of books on voice of the customer. And the biggest trait that I see from Bill is his humility. That's the essence of true education and true character. Again, thank you, Bill. So moving on, what we will do is we will just focus our story today around a hotel. Let's say we call it as a Focal Inn. Seems to be really nice in the mountains. And what we will talk about the challenges that we see from a market research perspective, understanding the customer perspective, because everybody talks about voice of the customer, but the real voice is always in unstructured text, right? Most of the voice is in unstructured text, and we really are not able to fully leverage the voice today and understand it. So if you look at the essence of success, this particular hotel or any particular hotel, if you go to TripAdvisor or any of the travel websites, there are a bunch of things that a hotel typically has. How is the quality of the service? How is the room? Is it quiet from a cleanliness perspective? How is the general safety? Are there any food options and things like that, right? So there are a couple of attributes by which this particular hotel is being evaluated by when it competes with its consideration set. And the challenge is there are a lot of complaints that continue to keep coming in, however well a hotel does or any particular business does. A lot of compliments, a lot of suggestions, and so much of innovation can come in for a product or a service that can be extremely helpful. And it's important for any market researcher, irrespective of the industry, to be very conscious and aware of the possibilities and what my customers are saying, right? If I'm a market researcher or a general manager at a particular hotel, I need to be aware of the problems or what my customers are complaining about at the moment of truth to the extent possible. Because what happens is, if you think about a simple journey, all of us travel or go to hotels. So from the time the registration is done to the point of check-in, and then the stay at that particular hotel, and then there is an exit from a checkout perspective, and then there's a follow-up afterwards. So there are various stages of every journey in this particular scenario. But how can brands really capture the essence of that journey? How can they fully understand what customers are saying? That is the biggest challenge. And sometimes it's too late. If there is a problem, let's say during the check-in, it's always helpful to be able to solve that problem at that point of time, capture that feedback, and do something to the customer, as opposed to the customer checking out 2 days later and then talking about this particular hotel on a TripAdvisor on some other website, right? That's good, but it's always good to understand at the moment of truth and really take some action when it matters. Irrespective, there's so much of feedback that keeps coming in, customers keep talking about all the time. For example, this is from one of the sample hotels that we've done some work before. So this one line says it, rude and rude staff. Of course, they could have some positive comments, there could be some negative comments, but the real challenge is it's not just one comment. Over a period of time, there could be thousands of comments which flow in from the travel websites, from whatever is captured within the hotel uh, at various points of time, right? And it's very difficult for a general manager or for a sales admin or whoever is at the hotel to really fully understand this because they do not have the time nor the resources to be able to go through these comments. And even if they go through the comments, it's extremely difficult for them to understand every single comment, right? And make sense out of it. Because ultimately, it's not about a rating of 1 out of 5, but it's about understanding why is it a 1 out of 5? Why is it a 3 out of 5? What are the areas where my hotel can improve from a market research perspective, right? So those are the challenges that are evident today. There are many platforms out there and doing a great job, but still there is a lot of complexity in understanding text. The same thing is applicable even from a market research perspective. Let's say there is a focus group going on, and given COVID, a lot of things are happening remotely, right? Nobody is meeting in person, but a lot of focus groups, a lot of workshops are happening remotely with business stakeholders. But there's so much of discussion that goes on as part of this focus group that is very difficult to get captured, right? Somebody will be a scriber, they may only be able to do so much. But how are we able to maximize our productivity and gather the insights from this market research process, right? There's so many conversations going on either at the hotel or outside or in various industries, because by itself, language is very complex, right? We have so many platforms, like I was saying earlier, which are able to give us positive and negative aspects of it, like a positive sentiment or a negative sentiment. But language is not as simple, which Bill will talk about in the next few minutes. Language is, it has a structure. Certain languages have verbs in the beginning, certain languages have verbs in the middle. So when we span across various languages, how do we make sense out of it? How do we make sense out of the context of the sentence is a major challenge. For example, I could say, I like the service, but the food was very salty, right? So as you can see, there is a positive and a negative comment there. The service was great, but the food was salty. So how do we differentiate these things? There is always a structure to any language, and it's very important from a computational linguistics perspective to be able to understand and appreciate that language to be able to take the right decisions. So what we did over the last 1 year to 2 years almost was Bill's company is ForestRim Technology, and FocalCXM, we have a product platform called StoryPulse, which has a couple of things which can add value to market researchers. And we've been working together to be able to come up with a unified story to solve this problem of one, ingesting text at various points of time, ingesting feedback at various points of time, whether it does not matter if the customer is online or offline. Let's say I'm a sales rep, I'm meeting a customer in a Starbucks, or I'm meeting him at a place where there is no internet. That should not block my ability to capture the voice of the customer. So the first problem is really, how do we ingest the voice of the customer across channels, across various options, where online, offline, live poll, how do we engage them through a gamification platform? There are so many aspects to it. And then once we ingest this feedback from various sources, from various channels, the next step is quantitative is relatively pretty easy. You can run it through some Tableau tool, or it's pretty straightforward. Excel will cut it, right? So quantitative is relatively pretty straightforward. But the real meaning, it's like the tip of an iceberg. The real intent, the real meaning is really in the unstructured text, the voice of the customer that is captured as text or comments like we discussed before, right? And that's where the ForestRim comes into play, whereby Bill will be talking about what the platform does and then how we can finally analyze all these reports from a CRM platform, be it Salesforce, be it Zoho, be it Oracle, it does not matter, how we can simplify the ability to analyze information and play it back into a CRM platform for a brand manager, for a product manager, for a market research. Right? So that is the unified story that we are coming up with. And also, we believe that the pricing for a few engines which exist today are extremely expensive, and there's no need to be so expensive. So for us, price factor is another thing where we want to collectively target the global market. We are not limited to the US, but we want to target the rest of the world, where we can help any brand across the globe to adopt our platform and to do pilots and to be able to understand the customers so that we can stay active, stay engaged in businesses. Right? So that is another key aspect for us. I'll just give you a quick walkthrough. I don't want to go into a lot of detail here, but just to give you an idea of what the StoryPulse platform is and what trends are we seeing from an ingestion perspective. And then we will spend some time on the ForestRim technology. Bill will walk through that, and we'll come back into a simple report that I can walk you through. Okay. So, all right. So let me just show you something here. I hope I can share my screen again. Give me 1 second. All right. So I'm trying to launch my iPad. So hopefully you should be able to see my iPad. This is one of the biggest challenges for iPad streaming stuff. But anyway, so StoryPulse supports multiple flavors of ingesting feedback, like I said. One is online through a web form, or two, it could be in an offline mode, because as much as there is pervasive internet, still there are a lot of markets across the globe or specific use cases where offline still rocks. There are use cases for offline, and we should respect it, and there should be solutions that work seamlessly in the offline mode. In a lot of scenarios you can do online. Some scenarios require offline. In the life sciences industry, when sales reps go to see the doctors, offline is like a core need, even in matured markets. Right? So StoryPulse is an app. Right now I'm showing it to you from my iPad. So let's say that I'm here in my dashboard, and a list of responses that I've recently captured, and I'm going into my assessments. So here, again, this can be on the web as well. So let's say I select an assessment, which is like a, let me just go through this, 1 second. Oh, yeah. So I'm just selecting all the assessments. As you see here, a restaurant survey. Let's say there's a market researcher or the hotelier interested to capture the responses from a customer sitting in a restaurant at the hotel, right? So this could be scenarios where we know the customer, or we do not know the customer. We solve it both ways. But this is simple qualitative feedback and quantitative. Provide us any valuable feedback. Well, I can say that I like the food, but service was slow. Okay? Simple example. And I could do that, and then similarly I can enter a few other areas. I can how does the quality. So this is all quantitative again, which is pretty straightforward. And then as a researcher, I just submit it. I'm done with this. Right? So this is one example of how, in general, mobile devices can be used to capture the feedback in both online modes and offline mode, right? So this application works in online and offline mode as well. And similarly, there is training, and there are other areas that will also be helpful, but that is beyond the scope of today's discussion, so I'm ignoring that. So let's say that is one example, right? Another example could be in a lot of markets, in a lot of markets, what happens is there is, 1 second. Yeah, in a lot of markets, what happens is WhatsApp is picking up significantly as well. So, for example, if I go to my own web.whatsapp.com, I'm just trying to open up the web channel that I use. Customers are able to get into the WhatsApp as a channel for communication as well. Now feedback and all is getting captured in the using the WhatsApp channel. Let me open up on a regular browser instead of in uh, private mode so that it shows up. So this is my personal WhatsApp on the desktop, right? So imagine a brand manager could be pushing out various assessments, various surveys defined in StoryPulse. So I'll walk you through real quick on what it could look like. So for example, if this is our brand and this is our brand website, and then I should be able to put together, talk to my customers as a brand manager or a market researcher, and then say, communicate with them, be able to uh, capture feedback, right? So in this scenario, it's no worries, please reach out. But then I can say use the right words and then say, hello, can you please spare? I'm a market researcher pushing an assessment through WhatsApp. So here I can say the brand is asking me, can you spare a few minutes to answer a few questions about your experiments? Let's say I say yes, and then this is all automated, right? Integrated within the StoryPulse platform. And then I say 4. So this is all a conversational thing. Thanks, and what is the primary reason for your score? Food was good, the same way. Food was good, but service was bad, right? Whatever it is, I can do this. And now we are at a position where in a lot of countries, WhatsApp is picking up tremendously and being used as a tool to capture the voice of the customer so that all this text that is coming in from various channels, again, can be pushed into the StoryPulse platform. I'm not showing you the web-based module of setting up the assessments because that is pretty straightforward and we can do it in a different session. But the intent is to be able to capture this into a platform and then be able to analyze it, right? So that's where the part of the StoryPulse sort of ends, or one part of the StoryPulse features will end. And then now that we collected all the feedback, now the challenge for us is how do we get into the mode of analyzing this, right? Because it's all unstructured. Now to get into the unstructured mode, I request Bill to be able to share his screen and talk about and talk about the actual magic behind the platform and then how it can help you guys with the unstructured text and making sense out of it. Bill, if you can.
Surely. Thank you, Adi. That was the most interesting presentation. And you're right. It's like a relay race where StoryPulse gathers the data and then hands it off to ForestRim. So let me tell you about ForestRim. ForestRim is a company that has developed technology to be able to read raw text and take that raw text and turn it into a structured database. Once you turn it into a structured database, you can then do all kinds of analytical things with it. So that's what ForestRim can do. The kinds of sources that ForestRim can work with is pretty much any source. We can take text from the internet. We can take text from voice to text transcription. We can take text from optical character recognition. We can take text from databases, you name it, and that's where we can take text from. Then what we're going to do with it, once we get our hands on the text, we then have our own technology called Textual ETL that reads the text and turns the text into a database. So what I'm going to do today for you is to show you very quickly a little demonstration of the kinds of things that we do. Now, every time we do a project for somebody, we do what we call a proof of concept. We've done them for banks, AT&T, churches, Cisco, clean energy, a wide variety of companies. But I think today I'm going to take you to Eden Rock. I don't know if you know who Eden Rock is, but Eden Rock is a hotel chain in Florida. They are a very well-run hotel chain. So what we did was we went out to the internet and we collected comments that people made on the internet. And I'm going to randomly select just one of the comments and we can read it. Now, this came from Expedia. The construction takes away from the experience. So somebody was unhappy with the construction. There's a pool and restaurant being built, which means loud noises and limited dining options. However, the views, staff, food, and location are all great. This is a typical comment. And so what we're going to do with this comment is we're going to essentially look for two things. We're going to look for the sentiment that's being expressed, and then we're going to look for what the person was talking about when the sentiment was being expressed. Now, this actually is a very typical comment. And again, I selected this one randomly from many, many comments. But the reason why this is a typical comment is because the person says some negative things and the person says some positive things. So at the very end, the views, staff, food, and location are all great. So we're going to pick up the word great and interpret that as being something very positive. Now, up here in the first sentence, we're going to see the words takes away, and we're going to interpret that as being negative. So this comment we're going to interpret as having both negative and positive things to be said. Now, the second thing we're going to do is we're going to look at what's being talked about. When the person was talking about something that was positive, they were talking about the views, the staff, the food, and location. And so that is what we interpret as being positive. The negative, they said the construction. There is loud noises and limited dining. So those things are the reasons for the negative comments. Just for fun, let's look at another one. Let's pick another random one. And, oh, okay, they must have been doing some construction. And this too is a typical one. Great hotel. So the person had something really nice to say about the hotel. However, they did mention construction was ongoing, but not an inconvenience. So they weren't necessarily negative, but they noted that construction was going on. So now the thing about these comments are a couple of things that you may not notice. Number one, these come from the internet. So there's no security, there's no privacy. People put information out on the internet for the purpose of public display. So when we're doing a demonstration in public, we don't have any concern with the security because there is no security on these kinds of comments. So that's one thing that is kind of interesting. A second thing that's kind of interesting is once you can pull off comments, you can look at literally thousands of comments. Let's do one more quick one. This hotel is very nice and the staff is super friendly. My only concern was with the cleanliness of my room. I walked into a bathtub full of hair, but the staff was accommodating and made sure my bathroom was clean the following day. So what you can do is you can look at literally thousands of these comments and get a consensus of what people are saying. And a human being cannot read all of these comments and do anything with it. A human being can certainly read all of these comments, but after reading 5,000 or 10,000 of them, the human being's brain is simply not going to be able to do anything with the comments. But the computer can. Once you put this into a database, you can then take the information that's been created and get the computer to analyze it. And now the computer doesn't have any problem with looking at 10,000 comments. And so anyway, this is the input. And again, the input can come from many places, including StoryPulse, and it comes into Textual ETL. Now let's take a look. Now I'm not going to go through the mechanics of the operation of the Textual ETL. In fact, if you're interested, we have a class starting next Monday in which we do go through the mechanics of Textual ETL. So I'm just going to simply say, and by the way, this is what the text looks like. We're now going to do something with it. And let me make one quick comment about the processing of Textual ETL. Textual ETL is complex, but the reason it's complex is language is complex. Language is kind of funny because everybody speaks a language, one or more languages, and we take it for granted. But the computer doesn't speak a language. And so if you're going to take language and put it on a computer, you've got to teach the computer all kinds of rules about spelling, alphabetization, all kinds of things need to be taught to the computer. And so, and because of that, that's why Textual ETL is complex. So I don't make any claims that Textual ETL is simple because it's not. On the other hand, the one thing Textual ETL is inexpensive. The other people that have done language processing are charging horrendous prices for what the work they do. Textual ETL, on the other hand, is something that's very affordable. So, having stated that this is the what we mean by taking text, let's go down to, and I need to get into one of my databases. And right now, let me jump into here. I'm not even exactly sure which one we have. Our internal database is SQL Server, but that shouldn't concern anybody. We can work in lots of different databases. Let's take a look at what our output looks like. Let's go down to one of our tables, and here we come into sentence sentiment. Now again, this may not look very beautiful to you, but there is something about this that is beautiful. And the thing about this that's beautiful, let me get situated here, is the fact that we can do any number. We can do 10,000. We can do 100,000. We can do any number of comments that a person has. We don't, unlike a human being cannot do 10,000. The computer can easily do 10,000. So let's take a look at what kind of analysis we did. Okay. This is one of our very first ones. This was done for a chain of restaurants called Red Lobster. I don't know if you're familiar with Red Lobster, but it's a restaurant chain in the United States. And we went out to the internet and got comments about Red Lobster. Let's see what people have to say. Well, the first thing we note is that we can go back to the comment itself. This directs me back to the comment. And furthermore, I can go back to the byte in the comment where the word we're interested in is found. So the person said in this particular document at byte, starting at byte number 1, they were talking about the lobster. And they said the lobster was wonderful. And we interpreted that to be a positive sentiment. And we determined that lobster was on the menu, and the menu was the product that was being sold by Red Lobster. So this is the kind of database that is created from the text itself. Now, if you are a computer analyst, you will note that this database is what you need to work on if you're going to be using Tableau or Click or Excel or Power BI or any of those. This is what you need to work on. You can't really take Tableau, Click, or any of them and work on raw text. So number 1, here we have the information that's important put into the form of a database, and that's what you want. We have the interpretation. We see here we have some positive sentiments. Now here's one that's kind of interesting. Potatoes and good, but it's interpreted as a negative sentiment. And you're going to say, wait a minute, Bill, good is a positive word. But what we find is that when you go to do sentiment analysis, you can't look just at words. You've got to look at the sentence itself, because I promise you, in this particular sentence, somebody said the potatoes were not good. They had a negative preceding good, which turned a positive into a negative. So anyway, when you get into it, you find all kinds of interesting things like that. And we can see that. Now, we only did a few sentences of Red Lobster. This was just for demonstration purposes. But by looking and analyzing this data, the person can tell lots of important things that the restaurant needs to look at. Number 1, don't look at any one customer, look at all customers. Number 1. Number 2, what are people talking about? Well, they're talking about lobster and service and scallops and fries and steak and service and food and fresh and biscuits. And this is what they're talking about. What are they saying? Well, mostly they're saying positive things, but every now and then they say something negative. And this is the kind of feedback that if you want to hear, this is the very essence of hearing the voice of your customer. And this is what Adi was talking about being able to, pardon me, to be able to capture the voice of the customer, then read it, analyze it, and then from this database, you can then get a person to visualize the text for you. So that, pardon me, that is a synopsis of how you go from text to a database. From a database, you can then go into visualization. And management demands to see the visualizations. So with that, so that's a brief overview of what Textual ETL does. I'm now going to turn this back over to Adi. And again, if you're interested, we have a class that goes into the details. There's a lot of details here. For example, you see the word like here, and it's in brackets. why is the word like in brackets? Because, well, there's a reason for it, because there's also the word dislike. So if we just put the word like up there and we saw the word dislike, it would pick up the word dislike. Well, dislike means the opposite of like. So we're telling the system that when we see the word like, we want to find a specific word. But when we see the word, let's find a good one here, fresh up here. Any instance of fresh, fresher, freshen, any string of words that has fresh in it will be picked up by that. So there's a lot of little details you've got to take into account when you're dealing with text. So I'm going to turn it back over to Adi now. That is one thing. If you do want to sign up for the course, we still have a few slots that are open. By the way, the course is free, doesn't cost anything. Just send an email to me at bill.inmon@forestrimtech.com. Or send an email to Adi and he can forward it on to me.
Yep.
Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Adi.
Thank you, Bill, for the overview. It was helpful. Let me share my screen. All right. So Bill talked about, he gave a kind of a brief overview about the aspects of textual ETL, right, from ForestRim. So that's the power of that lies in, you feed unstructured text in various documents, whatever formats, and ultimately it's giving out a table, a relational table, right, which is very beautiful. And I want to kind of extend the market research use case. So imagine the times when a lot of focus groups, like I said earlier, are happening in a remote way, right? Folks are remote, and yet all the workshops are happening, and there's so much of insight or there's so much of value that's being generated, either on a product discussion or a project discussion. But oftentimes, nobody has the patience. Let's say you take a scenario where there's a focus group or a workshop. So much of discussion happened over 3 hours, and then all this text, the audio is there. If at all we are able to record, as an example, even this particular session, there's so much of value that is there. So what we can do in StoryPulse, I want to get back to this slide, is one, you can upload the content. This is again the StoryPulse platform where we are able to have the MP4, which is a workshop extract or a focus group extract. We are able to upload this, and then going back to the slide, this particular MP4 recording has been uploaded into the StoryPulse platform. From there, we are able to, actually, this is AWS, from StoryPulse within AWS. We are able to take that MP4 recording of the focus group, push it into AWS, and get the text transcript out from AWS, and then pass that into the ForestRim technology. So the insights from that particular focus group, as an example, are extremely valuable, because market researchers do not have to go into the detail, but they can actually look at the text, one, make sense out of the text directly, or two, from the output from ForestRim, we can actually focus on specific reports. Like as an example, if this is a transcript from any of the feedback or a workshop, like Bill was saying, we can generate reports in any of your tools. Like for example, this is Tableau desktop. Not that I'm the best Tableau guy out there. I just have a basic idea. But the beauty is, if you look at the various aspects, the categories that Bill was showing in the table, if you're able to take the company, if you're able to take the subcategories and people and various things, we can understand where there is a negative sentiment. As market researchers, focus on exactly where the importance should be given to. So if I scroll through this, I'm just kind of eyeballing for the red bars. So let's say that, look at this, right? So this is a sentiment, and it kind of aligns with what the pool, though this is a different hotel. The negative sentiment is around the pool, right? So what we can always do is, we can always try to understand, okay, not knowing, rather having a positive or a negative sentiment is just one aspect of it. It's good. but exactly where is the challenge and how do we get to the actionable insights is the biggest question, right? So in this scenario, I can actually go into the pool and say, okay, I want to view the data for that particular set of records, right? If I want to view the full data, if I want to look at the summary, then I can actually do that. And then I can drill down and say, all right, people are complaining that there is some problem with the pool. Let's go and fix that so that the brands can actually have a better return on their customers, right? So that's a simple example of how the StoryPulse platform aligns with with ForestRim, with Bill Inmon stuff, and collectively we are able to generate some value that can really improve the market researcher's life and help brands deliver better products and services. And like Bill said, right, this is on ForestRim's website, and IDC's research says that a very small percentage of the text is being analyzed today. And now we are at this excellent time frame where we have multiple options and we can understand the real meaning of the voice. We can, if brands care to listen, right? That's the first thing. If brands have the right intent to listen to the customers, their technologies like this can actually help them take some actionable insights based upon the unstructured text. Right? As next steps, what we would like to propose is, if you can think of any use cases for your own organizations, feel free to reach out to us, either me or Bill. I will share the information after this webinar, maybe later today. We are more than happy to do free pilots. We can do detailed workshops, help you understand, or apply the same framework for other use cases. For example, public sector may have some other use cases, commercial may have something else, but we are willing to work with you on prototyping, analyzing, understanding. E-discovery is another use case. So we can come up with various use cases, because this whole concept of being able to ingest text across channels and then being able to understand, make sense out of that unstructured text is a very powerful feature that we should be leveraging and taking some actionable insights. Okay, so we're about 45 minutes in. That's all we have. Any questions? Since it's a small group, we can open up for Q&A. If you have any, if you prefer to email, that's fine too. You can unmute and ask us questions.
Hi, I'm Habib. I have a question. You introduced this tool. I actually miss his name, but I'm following everything properly. And I really enjoyed it. I always was trying to explore the unstructured data. So you have given me a very straightforward guideline to dig it more. So the tool which you introduce us, is it easily available for the labs or learning purpose?
Yes, so StoryPulse is available. ForestRim, Bill can make it available as well. That is correct. It's a bit of a controlled environment, but we can make it available to you.
Yeah. Okay. So we need to contact you in order to get that.
So yeah, that's right. We can exchange offline and we can share the details on how to get started so that you can explore.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And do you have any sample data sets as well with the free text unstructured data?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I will send you the email.
Sure, sure.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, this is Abhishek. Question. So do you guys pull data from, say, the App Store, Apple App Store reviews, or like, say, comments from Facebook pages, or?
Okay, let me handle that. Yes, ForestRim does have the ability to pull text off of the internet. Having stated that, certain people on the internet will not let you pull the data off. For example, Facebook. I don't know if you know it or not, but the only people that can get data off of Facebook are the company. You can get your company's data off of Facebook, but you can't get anybody else's data. So certain people on the internet don't want you pulling data off, but there's a lot of people that are happy to have you take their data and analyze it and process it. But can it be done? Now, let me tell you, we have a contact of ours in the U.S. government that tells us that you can pull data off of Facebook, but we don't want to. If an organization doesn't want us to have their data, then we don't want their data because we don't want to be sued in court.
Oh yeah, I was just referring to our own company data. So on our own Facebook pages.
Absolutely, Abhishek. Yeah.
The answer is yes. You can get to your own data, and you can take that data and send it to us, or allow us to get to the data. There's no problem. But what you can't do is go to somebody else's Facebook and get their data.
So do you then build models specific to our data?
Yes. When you use Textual ETL, you tailor the version of Textual ETL to your company and the business that you do.
Yeah.
So
basically our taxonomy then.
That's exactly right, Abhishek. Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So we take all the taxonomies, and then also another point on the same lines is that we've done the analysis of the feedback with some brands, whereby we took they almost expose, like Google exposes APIs. There are a few brands like TripAdvisor. There are a few companies that expose the APIs. So we just need that level of integration to be able to do it in a more methodical and acceptable way, so that the business is all right with it, and we can actually do it in a more formalized approach once the API level access is there for that specific business.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? If not, we have 9 minutes back. All right. Thank you all. So this will be posted on our website. We'll send a link. And if you have any questions, share the email.
Adi.
Go ahead.
Adi. Apart from the ETL in this tool, ForestRim, is there any machine learning also available in this one?
So machine learning, we work as a custom service. If you want to build any specific models using some regression modeling or anything like that, or any basic NLP processing, that will be like an extended service.
I mean, if any keyword, we are extracting new keywords in any text, can we make the knowledge base within this application?
Oh, yes. Yes. The taxonomy is extensible. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. I will be very interested to explore this tool as well, because probably this one might have been very optimized for the unstructured data. Okay.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yep, welcome. All right. Thank you all for joining. Be safe and have a wonderful rest of the day. We will forward you the webinar link and follow up on any action items.
Thank you. Adi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Amazing.
Great. Thank you, guys.